Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus coming at you from my favorite balcony here. Hopefully the wind doesn't interrupt this video too badly. We're talking tonight about Helena Blavatsky, and I think this is an important subject given that her Theosophy Society is still very influential when it comes to modern day interest in topics like astral projection, the stuff we talk about on this channel, life beyond the grave. I can't say DEATH anymore because YouTube will actually penalize the channel now that I've been finally monetized. I talk about this in a couple videos back, so you'll hear me if I have to say the D word, spelling it out. You have to admit it's pretty funny that this is how their algorithm operates. Yeah, it's like I have the church lady from Saturday Night Live looming over my shoulder now, and I can't say anything naughty or even interpreted as being naughty, or else I get penalized. So that's going to be fun. Anyway, so Blavatsky is an interesting character, an interesting subject, but also I think really it mirrors some of the things we've been talking about lately, including the idea of solipsism hiding in the bushes when we start going down paths of believing that other incarnate souls either do not matter, or that there's a very kind of selfish, self-centered view of reality, or that people around us are not really who they are, or what they seem. So there's some of these themes I find in Theosophy based upon some interesting stuff I was reading. And I'm going to bring up something a contributor wrote to me named Brian. So Brian wanted to talk about this subject because, well, for one thing, Theosophy pokes holes in some of the subjects we talk about. So it's one of these things where it's like some of the stuff I talk about and Theosophy, they cannot both be true, because Theosophy contradicts some of the very basic things that we talk about in regard to an afterlife. And so if they both cannot be true at the same time, then which one is true? Well, spoiler alert, I'm probably going to say that what I talk about based upon a large body of information, whether that's the works of Swedenborg on through modern day people who have NDEs to out-of-body explorers like myself, and more prominent ones like Jürgen and so forth and so on, that we have a pretty solid picture about realms beyond this world. And it's on one hand it's extremely complicated, but on the other hand it's not extremely complicated, and we can pretty quickly assimilate this knowledge if we want to. Whereas Theosophy really turns in some weird directions, which in my opinion are not found anywhere else except the writings of Blavatsky and maybe a few of the modern authors who postulate different theories, some of the guys that I talk about a lot on this channel, usually in a critical tone. And I cannot help but wonder if Theosophy is the origin of some of those ideas. Before I go into this article that I have up, you are watching Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, where we talk about these kinds of complex things. If you like these long-form podcast-style videos, admittedly a bit low budget as I travel out of a backpack, then I'd encourage you to please go down and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that YouTube will tell you when new videos come out, and especially share the video if you think other people can benefit from this kind of information. So here's kind of the take on Brian's research into Theosophy. So Brian writes to me, Cyrus, I wanted to get your take on a few things. I've been doing extensive reading regarding Theosophy. While Theosophy regards itself as a philosophy and science of nature and how it works, it, like so many other concepts, relies on the accounts of people. Much of the accounts for the journey of the soul after DEATH come from Madame Blavatsky. And according to her, to paraphrase, what basically happens after our physical DEATH seems to be in direct opposition to the idea that we live in an astral world. And it is in direct opposition. And you have to also wonder, I'll get into this later, what was Blavatsky possibly obtaining as a result of stifling certain information from people. The nature of I don't even know if I should say the word OCCULT. We'll just call it, what rhymes with that? It's Blavatsky, so we'll call it Bocult. The nature of the Bocult is the Boculting of information. It's the hiding, suppressing of information for the sake of power. So that right away means that we need to call elements of Theosophy into question. This is definitely the territory of people like a guy I know named Aleister Crowley, who was one of the most prominent Bocultists from this era, a little bit past the era of Blavatsky actually. And going into that work, let me tell you, it's a rabbit hole to Strangeville, and not information that really helps, I think, somebody on a personal spiritual journey so much. According to her, the astral body dissolves in a few hours, days, or possibly weeks after the physical body DIES, and then we go into some sort of a peaceful slumber. We then experience what the yogi term davasham references, in which we experience exactly what we expected to experience, and live a life with all of our friends and loved ones who appear to be as real as can be, yet according to Blavatsky and other theosophists are only an illusion. So where have we heard this before? Well, I'm going to have to say Tom Campbell says something similar to this. But obviously this goes against the majority of credible accounts of the other side that talks about a persistent multiverse of endless realms, infinite, essentially, realms of varying levels of solidarity, of varying levels of consciousness. So there's no way to reconcile this idea with whether it's Swedenborg or Jürgen Zive or so many others, or great NDE authors. There's really no way to reconcile the whole idea that the astral world is an illusion. And every time I hear this idea come up, my intuition goes off and tells me there's something weird going on, some kind of an agenda, or maybe some kind of a desire to suppress information, or I don't know what it is, but so this is a pretty big warning bell. And let me tell you right now that Blavatsky saying that the astral plane is an illusion is immediately going against spiritualism, which was in pretty big opposition to Theosophy. And so Brian asks, so my question is, how did she know this? What makes her accounts and the accounts as old as the yogis and ancient masters of wisdom become gospel as far as Theosophy is concerned? To me, this is just another belief system. In essence, according to their take, there is absolutely no way we can ever truly see our loved ones again, and that the astral shell left behind contains no soul, but can recite facts and act as a sort of automatron. Again, if you're an empath and you have after, God, I hate this policy. After DEATH, after having crossed over contact experiences, then we know that it's the people who they really are. The ones I've had with my mom and other people who have come and visited me, not just in the astral state, but like in the near astral state, just laying in my bed with my eyes closed, and then they literally come in and start talking to me and making contact this way. There's nothing about these people whatsoever that could be interpreted as an automatron. And the people I know in this field who have had countless phenomenal experiences or even continued contact through EVP or ITC methods, it would be absurd to call these people automatrons. So this is what Blavatsky appears to talk about in her work. I'll have some more theories about this possibly in a minute. So Brian continues, this is in direct conflict with reports and experiences such as yours. In addition, they teach about reincarnation, as you know, based upon karma. Meanwhile, they also teach about the 7 spheres of heaven and say we vibrate with one of them, or a sub-sphere of a sphere, eventually after D word. This then contradicts Blavatsky. So how can Blavatsky on one hand say the astral world is an illusion and our deceased loved ones are illusions, and yet on the same note say that there's like 7 spheres of heaven and that there's different afterlife realms? So so that doesn't make a lot of sense. And so I'm wondering your take on all of this, and if you have read any of the Theosophist books. Unfortunately, I haven't, so a lot of this information is coming from what Brian is telling me, what the Wikipedia page has been telling me, and what some brief summaries on the web have told me. So, for all I know, we're both misrepresenting Theosophy. Or maybe Blavatsky wasn't completely serious when she said these things, or maybe it's a misinterpretation, or maybe she, as I think Tom Campbell and others have, when they've said similar things, are talking about a whole different phenomenon than our deceased loved ones, which is the dreamscape, which is the thought forms that we manifest in our own minds when we're dreaming. Whether it's Tom Campbell's version of thought form entities or it's Blavatsky's, both of those make sense in the context of lucid dreaming. So, Brian continues, the few OBEs I've had have not brought me further than my own home or neighborhood, and while I was able to finally move about on my own free will, their duration was minimal. This and the fact that they happen so rarely, and I have yet to learn how to do them at will. Sorry, that sentence kind of cuts off. So I realize this is a mouthful, and while I don't expect you to have a definitive answer, I'm just wondering your thoughts. I have found you to be a very objective, reasoned, and grounded individual. Thanks, Brian, which is why I respect your reports and ideas. So much of what others report seem to be more wishful and subjective than objective. Thank you, and hope your stay is safe and peaceful. So it's tough to, unless I had a formal training in Theosophy of some kind, to be able to offer a clear perspective. It's difficult, but based just on what you're telling me, Brian, and such, what I see is a pattern of sketchy information about the other side that often relates to second guessing it or claiming that all of it is some kind of an illusion, and that there is a higher and greater realm when you go past the illusions, which are all fake. And I think a lot of that comes about as a result of our limited abilities to connect with that side and the phenomenon of dreaming. Because I still believe that the dream world is what we would call a subjective state. So it's an inner world populated by creations of our own mind, which we could argue to be automatons. If we are experimenting with astral states or attempting to go into out-of-body experiences, we are likely to end up sometimes mistakenly inside of dream worlds, which are distinct from the objective, and I call external, other dimensions, the astral planes as we call them, or afterlives, or the multiverse, whatever terminology that you want to use. So some people have said all of reality is about going internal and not going external, and I actually disagree with that. I think that if we go fully internal, we are more likely to enter into a dreamscape, whereas when we go external, as in we feel the vibrations, we feel ourselves leaving our body, and we go to an external, independent realm of existence, then we are, I think, more likely to enter an objective reality. So where do you want to go? Do you want to go into a subjective reality where you create your whole world around you, or do you want to go into the mass shared consciousness like we exist in right now? So here in the streets of Skopje, it is a mass shared existence. It is a realm built and shared by everybody. But if I were to go to sleep at night and build a world, and you can do that if you're trained enough, you can build a whole planet, but it's entirely populated by your own mental projections. And you'll find that very quickly, because the people you meet will not be autonomous individuals. Now, maybe they could eventually become autonomous individuals, but it is still an inner world. Within these inner worlds, you have the ability to connect with your higher self. And so a great thing I learned from the OBE author Ken show was that you can go into a, quote, dream state, and find a thought form and have it deliver a message to your higher self, like, hey man, can you help me quit smoking? And it'll faithfully deliver that message into your greater subconscious mind. But still, it's all part of your own internal world. So what happens to modern day out-of-body authors, and maybe even Blavatsky back then, is that in the experimentation process, they have these lucid dream experiences, which is kind of like an out-of-body fool's gold, an out-of-body red herring. And they have no way to distinguish between this kind of subjective inner world experience and an objective outer world experience, because they can both seem so similar. Now, what you can do is follow William Bullman's advice, which is try to modify the environment, try to change the color of something, and by doing that, you'll be able to distinguish whether or not you are in a subjective inner world or the objective astral domain. Because in the objective domain, because the consciousness is shared by as many people as you see around this world, it's not always possible to modify the environment, because it's like it's glued together based upon the consensus of everybody who lives in that realm. And if people don't want wizards coming along and turning buildings into mushrooms, then it's not going to be possible to do that, and it's not going to be possible to modify somebody else's private property, because they're attached. It's their personal dwelling space, and you can't just come in and screw with it. Okay, you could try to, and maybe some kind of a local astral law enforcement might kick you out of the place. I'm not even joking, because that kind of stuff can and does happen on the other side. So that is the evidence that you're in a real place. And it's not to say that the inner world is not real. If you want to go back into talking about the stuff Craig Hogan was talking about a couple interviews back, because we could argue that the inner subjective world is still a real place, no less real than here. But the problem is that it's not objectively populated by other souls. And this is what confuses people. Even well-intentioned authors who I think just don't know any better get duped by this. My final note about Blavatsky, though, is that here's something Blavatsky said once that I find a little bit troubling, and I want to always use this as a barometer when dealing with Blavatsky. And this is what she said, and hopefully you can see this up on the screen here. It's basically saying, I have the church lady from SNL looming over my shoulder, so I can't say certain words, but basically she's saying that it is the Lord of Heck. We'll just say that, who is the God of our planet and the only God. So that's a little bit extreme, a little bit crazy, isn't it? I'm not exactly willing to, at this point, lay everything down and say, all hail Beelzebub, right? That's not really my philosophy so much. Because if there is an entity like that, if there is a group soul, a Luciferian group soul, I probably shouldn't have even said that word, then who's to say it has our best interests in mind? There's a lot written about that, and it's not necessarily an evil entity, if you want to go down that path, but it's not necessarily looking out for like the individual either. It's about, there's a lot of weird, dark stuff in that world with people trying to get power and trying to get wealth by serving these dark forces, which I'm telling you right now is never a good idea. And a lot of it involves confusing people. A lot of it involves getting power over others by hiding information, concealing information, purposefully misinterpreting things so that they have access to knowledge and other people only have access to watered down versions of that knowledge. And here is Blavatsky. And others of that era were also fervent DEVIL worshippers, including, of course, Karl Marx. And if you notice, of course, if you take a look at Marxism and communism and how well that worked out, and you'll see that, these darker forces, I honestly don't really trust anything that comes out of that, because it is about securing power in whatever realm that you want to gain power in. And so, if it's about gaining personal power, why would they be actually sharing information with anybody? Because if they're trying to just gain their own personal power, right? It's kind of like those get rich quick scheme types of people. It's like, if you actually had the secrets to get rich quick, you wouldn't be sharing it with me, because you'd be using that to get rich and pull the wool over everybody else's eyes, so you can keep that, you can keep your wealth and not reveal the real secrets to people. So that's why I don't really trust Blavatsky. It's why I don't trust Theosophy, and it's why I don't really recommend it as a philosophy so much. And there's better areas, even plain old-fashioned spiritualism, the stuff Arthur Conan Doyle was going on about, and all those guys, Arthur Findlay. Even that stuff is about the objective handling of the spirit world, and it's very far removed from what Theosophy is talking about. I'd be careful with it, but I want your opinion. What are your thoughts? Leave it in the comments down below. How do you think Theosophy contradicts objective spiritual research? Why does Blavatsky think the astral world is an illusion? Let me know what you think down below. And this is Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. If you want to get involved, best way to do that is to become a patron at patreon.com/afterlifetopics. Basically, I need your support to keep this channel alive. If you like what I have to say, you throw in a couple bucks a month, then that's really going to help keep this going. I'll be sure to be in touch with you personally if you do so. Or you can pick up one of my books at afterlifetopics.com is the best place to do that. So let's pull up my website real quick. So as you can see, out now, The Afterlife and Beyond, an examination of life after bleep by an out-of-body explorer. And so this is the sequel to Understanding Life After Bleep, and I go deeper into topics, whether it's artificial intelligence, the nature of what the other side is like, the origins of life, and how consciousness plays a role in existence, and a lot of fun stuff like that. If you're into metaphysics, I know you'll like my book. It's a big meaty book. Makes a great gift for other fans of metaphysics. And you can also join the Facebook community by going up here to join the Facebook group. Well, this is Cyrus, and I'll be having a lot more videos coming out, because really I'm doubling or tripling the amount of content for the next few months, trying to really help take this stuff off, and hopefully I'll do it before the end of the year. Kind of a deadline before I have to go back to the real world and working full-time jobs again. And so if I can pull this stuff off before that time, great. If I fail, well, I did my best. Okay, this is Cyrus. I'll talk to you next time.